Okay. If you have a question, drop a question for me on the answers. Yes, you will get the recording, but I wasn't recording before. I just started recording now. So if you have any question, drop a question for me in the question and answer topic. If you understand all I was trying to explain about the front end, the APIs, the back end, and all of that. If you have a question, drop a question for me. Can you're supposed to hear me now? I think you should hear me now. If you have a question, drop a question on the questions. Okay, thank you. No question on what I've explained so far. The back end, the database, the APIs, and all of that. Any question? No questions. So including the new students, you have no questions. No questions. Okay. Double equals and triple equals the back end. Okay. So I'll start with the first question. Now, you don't need to be a front-end developer to be able to understand backend. No, there are two different tracks. A front-end developer is different from a back-end developer. In every company or in every organization where they are developing a software, they will hire front-end developers. They will also hire back-end developers. So your job as a back-end developer is totally different from a front-end developer. But you can do both if you want. And by doing both, you'll be called a full stack developer. So a full stack developer is somebody who can build both for front end and also build for the back end. Yes, the back end and the front end must work together, although they are hosted separately. So it means that you can host your front end in Lagos and host your back end in Jigawa, but the two of them will be communicating to serve the user. And that's how it works. So I think I've been able to explain a backend. So as a backend developer, your job starts from here to here. So all of this, to build the API, set up the server, run the database, connect all of it together, this is your job as a backend developer. Now, you have no business with front end whatsoever, but whatever you do, you make sure that it's communicating with your your front end. So in the absence of any question, you can be a front-end developer and also be a back-end developer. That is when you become a full stack developer. So if you learn back-end and you decide tomorrow, okay, I also want to learn front-end, that's your choice. You learn a back-end. Now, on who gets more job, the question is, there is no back-end without front-end. And there is no software you want to build that will not have a back end. So while they are hiring front-end developers, they are also hiring back-end developers to build any software. MoneyPoint, Payday, OPay, Access Bank, all of these mobile apps, Jumia, Konga, all the websites that you know that have functionalities, they all have front-end developers. They also have back-end developers. So none gets more jobs like that. They are all the same. But the front end will not function unless there is a back end. So you can build your front end, but without building the back end, the functionality will not work. So even if you are done building the front end, the mobile app, and the back end developer, the thing is this: when you build a back end, your job doesn't end there. You don't build a back end and you go. You build a back end and you continue to be maintaining it. You will still be there to be maintaining it. Whenever the users encounter issues, you will be there to fix their errors. Whenever they have challenges using the software, you'll be there to fix that challenge. So it is just you don't build and you go away. So as a backend developer, you build, you stay there, you keep managing it until the day your contract will be finally over with the company. So I think that is all. Now for the APIs, if I want to explain APIs again, let's say this is a restaurant and this is the counter where you have foods. Now the API is actually the waiter that will come to take your request and also deliver to you what you have ordered for. So that is what we refer to as the API. And also the API will check whether what you have is currently on the counter, or do we need to go to the store or the fridge to get what you have actually ordered. So that is what the API stands for. So as a backend developer, you'll be building different APIs. The APIs for registration to accept user details and register them, the API to log them in, the API to remember their password, the API to log them out, the API to change their profile information, profile images, the API to do transactions, API to, you'll build so many APIs. That is your job as a backend developer. Okay. Application programming interface. That is the full meaning of API. But we're going to get to that later. You can't connect again. Why? Why? You should still see the group. Exactly. The APIs are like the nerves to the brain. The brain will only receive signal through the nerves. That is what we refer to as the API. You still can't connect? Sorry, you should see where to connect. I'm sorry about that, but all right, so let's continue to what we have for today. Now, today we'll be looking at JavaScript, the second part of JavaScript. What we have done so far was to look at the first part of JavaScript. And what we are doing today is totally independent from what we have done so far. Even though we are working on JavaScript, as a first time joining our class, please try and pay attention to what we have done or what we are doing, because it's important. I'll start by creating a file. I'll call it index, but it must end with HTML. That is how you know which file is a HTML file. I want to see that you have joined. Please try joining again. I want to see that you have joined. So I will create HTML file. And for our new timers, we've actually passed this part. So which is why it is important for you to go through that video. But I will explain this. Assuming you create a file here, we call it index.html. To start the document, you don't need to type everything yourself. You start the HTML by typing exclamation mark. Now, this exclamation mark is from Emmet. So what Emmet does is it gives you suggestions of what you want to achieve. So when you type exclamation mark, it will ask you, do you want to bring out something like this? If you say yes, then you enter tab. It will give you something like this. So this is just the whole HTML divided into two, the head and the body. So, but if you go through the HTML videos, you should be able to understand what this is about and what it's doing. And also, but if you still have questions after going through the video, please drop a question for me and I will respond to them, or possibly make a short video to explain it for you further. So what I want to do is JavaScript, or what I want to work on is JavaScript. So I'll create another file. I'll call it index, but it will end with JS. This is JavaScript and HTML. Now, in order to write my JavaScript and use it on the browser, I need to link it in this HTML. And this is how you link it, by typing script. But you will not type the whole script. You allow Emmet to suggest for you. So what you do is click on script that has src, and then you hit /. You pick the file that you want to link. In this case, I want to link JavaScript. Now, I will explain again. Now, if you don't understand this, it's okay, it's fine. You need to just go through the video that is on Google Classroom and you'll be able to follow up. But if you can still follow up from here, very good and fine. So what I have here is my JavaScript linked in my HTML. So what I can do is go to where I have this HTML. This is the folder I created for it, and you can see the HTML here. You can see the JavaScript here. So I can just open this with my browser, and I have this. So as a developer, there are three things you create or you have to open when you want to work on any project. The first one is a project directory that we call the folder. So you need to create a folder. This is my folder for today. I call it JS4. So you create a folder. You open that folder with VS Code. Now, this is VS Code that we use for coding. There are so many text editors that you can use, but for us, we are using VS Code because it has a lot of benefits. So you open VS Code, create your first file, which is HTML, create your second file, which is JavaScript. Now link your JavaScript file in the HTML, but link it as the last thing in the HTML. So you link it inside the body, but the last thing inside the body, like this. So when you link it up, now if you're using Windows, you can right click here and open with Live Server. And I'm sure you don't know what Live Server is, but don't worry, just go through the video, you understand what Live Server is. So, but here I have my JavaScript, and in order to see the JavaScript I will write here, I need to right click on this browser, open inspect, and I will still say again, just watch the video and you will understand all of these things that I'm doing currently. So, but even if you've not watched the video, no problem. Just pay attention to the part where I am teaching. Now, if I'm done with the class, you understand it anytime you go through the video. Okay, increase the font. Which of the font? I think do let me know which of the fonts to increase. Is it the one on my browser or here? Do let me know which of the fonts to increase. Okay. So now the next thing I want to talk about is JavaScript DOM, the DOM. Now what is the DOM? The DOM is just JavaScript object module. So what does it mean? It means how JavaScript interacts with the tags that are nested in the body. For example, I can have a div, and inside the div, I will have maybe UL. Inside the UL, I will have LI, and inside the LI, I will have an anchor tag. So if you look at it here, now this is the parent to this, and why this is the parent to this, and why this is the parent to this, and also the LI is the parent to the anchor tag. So if you look at it, this is the child, this is the parent, the grandparent, the great-grandparent, and the great-great-grandparent. So the way these things are nested inside one another and how JavaScript interacts with them is what we refer to as the DOM, or the DOM manipulation. So the DOM manipulation is simply how you change or tweak or interact with everything that is currently inside the body tag, like that. So that is what we refer to as the DOM and the DOM manipulation. Okay. Now, do let me know if you can still see if the font size is okay like this. So, but I'm not going to be working with this div. I want to start more with h1 tag. So this is h1 tag, and I'll call it topic. And if I refresh this, you will see the topic here. Now with JavaScript, I can interact with this h1. I can make it disappear, I can change the color, I can tweak it, I can display it based on a certain condition. I can do all of the JavaScript logic I want to and apply it to this h1. But first, you need to start by selecting it. So that brings us to what we call selectors. The first thing in JavaScript is to be able to select a tag from the document. So this is the document, and we're working on document object module. So the whole of this is referred to as the document. So we need to be able to select a tag from the document. So the first thing we want to talk about is a single selectors and the multiple selectors. And multiple selectors. Now, if you are a new student, I might understand that this could be too much for you to understand, but please try and pay attention to it. Is actually, this is different from what we have done. Now, it doesn't mean that if you don't understand what we've done so far, you can't follow up here. No, there might be a little of it here, but the bulk of what we are doing today is different from what we have done so far. So if you can pay attention to this, trust me, you will follow up with what we're doing. So at the end of the class, I don't know the video you are asking for, but there's a video currently on Google Classroom. And if I open Classroom here, so for the newbies, this is your classroom. Now the videos I'm talking about are currently here. You have this first video for HTML, you have the second one for CSS, and you have the third one for JavaScript. Now this will teach you everything you need to know about HTML. This will teach you everything you need to know about CSS, and this also will teach you everything you need to know about JavaScript. Now, each of them is like this is. There are more videos here, but they are in two minutes, and this one here also in two minutes, and here also is so in two minutes. But I'm actually recording the class, and that means that by the end of the class, you should also get the video or the recording for today's class also. So if there's anything you don't understand, you can go through the video for today's class. So I want to talk about selectors and how to work with selectors. Let's say I want to select this HTML. The first thing I can do is to actually call the document. Now, the reason why I'm calling the document is because I want to select from the document. But I can actually go by saying get elements by tag names. And the tag name I want is H1. So this one here, I'm trying to get all the elements by the tag name H1. So this here is a multiple selector because it will select all H1 tags like this. And in order to see that, we can store this inside a variable and say all H1. So what we are doing is we are selecting all of the H1 tags by their tag name, and we are storing it inside a variable called all H1, and we can console log this if we want. All H1 and save. So if I click here and click on inspect, check my console, refresh, I have H1 collections console logged here. So it's selecting all the H1, and if you look at the length, you have that is just one H1 inside here. Now for the newbies, it might look so strange to you, but don't worry, with time you get used to it. And if you have any questions in the course of the class, feel free to drop it in the question and answer topic. I will respond to it. But for those who are following us, let's continue. Now this here is a multiple selector. Now if we want to select, if we have more than one tag here, and we want to select only the first one, what we can do is give this an ID name, and we call it something like TT. Save it here. So we have given this an ID name. We can come here and select it. So we can say here document dot get element by ID, and inside here you pass in the ID TT. So we are selecting the tag name that the ID is equal to TT. So here this is the only tag with ID TT. So if I save this, or maybe store it inside a variable, call it topic is equal to this, I can console log topic and save it. So if I refresh this, you'll see that I'm console logging that H1 that was selected. So you can select any tag at all from the document. Now the first part of interacting with the document or manipulating any tag in the document is to be able to select it. So that is the first part. You are able to select it, and then you can manipulate it or do whatever you want with it. Now there is another type of single selector. We can say const, call this one anything, maybe topic 2, and set it to be equal to, so here I can give this a class name if I want, class, and I'll give it TTT, that's triple T. I'll save that. So here I can say document dot query selector. Now query selector is another way to select a single item, but here the difference is you need to indicate whether it is a tag name, or whether it's a class name, or whether it's an ID name. Now from HTML here, this is a class name, and so since that is a class name, we can actually add a dot here to signify that this is a class name. So if I save it and console log topic 2, so by the time I refresh this, I'll see that I am getting topic 2. So even if I want to use this document, the query selector, to select by ID, which is to select this topic here, with double T, and this is the ID. What I can do is come here, remove one T, and it's double T, but because it's ID, I need to indicate by adding hash. So if I save this, now this is double T, which is this first one, topic 1, and I'm storing it inside here, and I want to console log it here. So if I refresh this, I have double T here. So this is how you can select a tag from the document. And I also say if you have any questions so far, you can drop it in the questions and answer topic. So what we are doing so far is we are trying to understand how to implement logics. We've not started the real backend. So as a backend developer, your whole job depends on writing logics, doing logics here and there. So what for example, get an item, store it inside a variable, console log that item, assign it a value, run if or else statement, check the conditions, check the parameters, loop through all of them, return all the female students, return all the males, return those that pass, calculate the average. All of these things are logic. Yes, we can use query selector for multiple. So if I come here and I say const, I just call it multiple like this, and say document dot query selector, but this time it will be query selector all. So instead of single query selector, we use query selector all. And this way, here now you can say, I want to select all of the ones that have the class name TT, or all of the ones that have the hash name TT, or all of the H1 tags. Is okay. So this is how you select with query selector all. So query selector all, you can select all of the class names, but you must indicate that is a class name by adding a dot, or you indicate that is an ID name by adding a hash, or you just add the tag name here, maybe H1 or H2 or any of those. So this is how you select. Now with this selector, there are other selectors you can use. There are other selectors you can use. For example, get element by class name. Now, if you look at it here, I say get element. That is element, multiple elements. So this is also a multiple selector. So you can either get all elements by the class names, or you get all of them with query selector and you pass in their class name here. Now you can use either by ID, or you use query selector, or you can switch between the two of them, or use any one you want. What is the difference between class and ID? There's no difference. It's just in the name. This is a class, this is ID. Although the ID will override class if they have a conflicting style, but in difference, there's actually no difference. A certain developer can decide to use classes in his own tags. Another developer can decide to use IDs. So like I've said, when it comes to software development, when you do a particular thing, there is also two other ways of doing that same thing. It mustn't be done. It's not just that there's only one way to do it. No, there's three ways to do everything that has to do with software development. Who will provide the class name or ID from the front end? Will you be giving the front end and the back end project? Okay. Now, what I am teaching you here, I am using the website as an example. Going forward, you will have no business whatsoever with the front end. Your own is to write your back end and grant the front end access to make requests. So, but for now, we're just learning the basics of performing certain logics. So, but going forward, as a backend developer, nothing concerns you with class name, ID name, and all of those things. No, but by the time you are beginning your class name, your backend class, you should understand how to perform most of these logics, all these simple logics, because going forward, you will do a lot of logics, and none of them has anything to do with HTML like that. But for now that we're beginning our class, we should be able to write a simple HTML and manipulate it with JavaScript. Write a simple HTML and manipulate it with JavaScript. Sorry about that. Don't be lost with the class and ID. If you go through our video here, this video on CSS, you understand what class means and what it represents, and also what ID means too. But after going through it, if you don't understand what it means, please fall back and then drop a comment for me. I will respond to that. So sorry about that. Yes, ID is a unique name. Exactly. So with this going forward, what we can now do is try to manipulate each of these. Say we can select them. How do we then manipulate them? We can select them. How do we manipulate them? The first manipulation we can do is that we can actually change the contents in each of them. So I'll save this and I'll remove this. You know what? I'll also remove this, but I'll copy it. So what I've done is try to select the element with the ID name TT, and that will be this first topic. So there are other ways to change the content of this tag without coming here to change them. So we can change them here if we want. I've changed it, and if I refresh, it has changed. But I can also change it in the JavaScript by saying, by the time I select it, I will assign it to a variable and then use that variable to manipulate it. So I can say the topic dot test content should be equal to something like Samson David and save it. So if I refresh this, you see that the content of the tag has changed to Samson David. But if you come back to HTML, it is still remaining the same here. So this is the first way to manipulate a tag. You can select it and then assign a different text content to it. Okay. So you can assign a different text content to it. Now you can do this as many times as you want to change the content of a particular tag. Now it doesn't have to be H1, it can be any of the heading tags, it can also be a span tag, it can be any tag that you want. You can manipulate any tag. But for now, we are trying to use H1 to demo how you can interact with the document or the DOM. So the next thing we can also do is this. Okay. In our HTML, it's not changing, but in the browser, it's actually changing. So how you know it's changing is if you open your inspect section and go to the body tag. Now this is the body tag. If I open it up, you see that this H1 here, the name inside has changed. It's no longer what is currently inside this HTML. Now all of these are HTML tags, but the content for this H1 is actually coming from JavaScript. That is the first manipulation. And I'll repeat again, as a backend developer, it's just let's say a prerequisite for you to understand how to do these simple logics. But as a backend developer, it doesn't depend on that. You have more jobs to do that has nothing to do with manipulating the hidden tags. So, but for now, you need to know how to do this. So the other thing we can do is, maybe we don't want to use test content. I can remove the test content and save it. I'll come back here and refresh. It's back to what it was before. But I can use an inner HTML and say topic dot inner HTML is equal to backticks, and I can add another HTML here. Say H2, close it, H2, close it. Then inside here, I can write anything like HHH like this. So what this means is I have selected add another HTML inside it. And the HTML I'm adding inside it is this H2 tag. So if I save this and refresh, you see that the content has changed, but it is not the same as the test content. Because if I open up this body tag and open up my HTML, now you see I have my H1 here, but inside the H1, I have another tag, which is the H2. And this is coming from JavaScript. So these are the two ways to actually change the content of a tag after you have selected it. So the first thing to do is to select the tag. The second thing to do is that you can change the text content. Okay. For inner HTML, you are adding a HTML into the tag. Now, inner text and text content are doing basically the same thing. You are changing the text in the tag. So that's like the basic difference between the both of them. But we can go deeper into that, which is actually a little bit above what we have for today. But inner HTML, you are adding a new HTML inside it. Inner text and text content are doing basically the same thing by changing the text inside the tag. So what I can do is, apart from this, I can add topic again and then say dot inner text. I actually didn't show you that it's back. So let's see that it's actually back to what it was. So it's back to what it was. So I can change the inner text, assign it to be something like this. So if I refresh this, you see that the inner text has also changed. And if you come here, you also see that the text has also changed. Now, all of these, they have different implications by using them and when to use them and how to use them. But like I said, they are actually beyond the scope of today's class. And I just hope that those who are joining us for the first time are still in class and they are not overwhelmed with what we have done so far. So, but if you have any questions as first time joining us in class, sorry, we're not doing magic. If you have any questions so far, drop a question as a new student. Okay, my screen is freezing. Sorry about that. I don't know if another person has the same experience with my screen freezing. But the good thing is I'm actually recording the class. So by the end of the class, you get the video for this class. I want to see that, yeah, I'm still recording the class. So sorry about that. I hope it will not continue. So going forward, we have seen how to change the content. The next thing we can do is we can actually change the color or maybe the style, or to a layman say apply CSS to it. Okay, it's expected. Sorry, maybe before the next class you'll be able to follow up. So we can actually apply CSS to these things like this. So after selecting it and storing it inside the variable, we can use that variable to apply styles to it. For example, I can say topic dot style dot color. I can change the color to be something like red and save it. If I refresh this, now the color is red. So I can equally change it to maybe green or blue or any color I want. Save it and refresh. Now the color is green. Let me change it back to red and save it. If I refresh, it's now back to red. So I can equally make it bigger for those who are very good with CSS already. Style dot font size. I can change the font size to be something like 40 pixels and save it. So if I refresh, the font size is now a little bigger. Is it safe to say that inner HTML targets the hashtag, inner text, and text content target the content of the text? So like I said, the simple way to put it is that inner HTML, you are adding a new HTML inside the selected HTML. So, but inner text and text content, you are changing the content on the selected HTML. You don't have the class ID. I'm trying to understand what you mean by you don't have class ID. Are you talking about the Google Classroom or this current class? I don't know if it's actually on the call. Okay, the Google Classroom. So what I'll do is I want to believe that you are a new so I'll try sharing the link to this class. Where can I find that? I think I can, but I will share the link to this Google class with you later. I'll drop it for those who are currently not on this classroom. I will drop the link for you later. So we can continue. Now we've seen how to change the content. We've seen how to apply styles to it. Okay. So what we can also do is that any CSS style that you can apply in CSS, you can actually apply it here if you want. But the idea is to keep HTML tags in HTML, CSS tag in CSS, and JavaScript files inside JavaScript file. So, but most of the times you can actually write your CSS inside JavaScript if you want. But let's say we have this. We've seen how to change the content. We've seen how to change the style. Now we can add an event and say the color will only change when a button is clicked. So that is like an event. An event, we are saying that based on the user interaction. Now, only when the user interacts with it should something happen. Now, currently the color is changing without interacting with Sorry about that. I lost my connection. So, but drop a thumbs up if you can see my screen and you can hear me. Please, I'm sorry about that. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, I was trying to explain that we've seen how to change the text content. We've also seen how to apply styles to it. So, like I said, these styles is not just the color and the font size you can add. Now, any CSS style at all, you can add it. So, but I don't want to go deeper into adding CSS styles. I want to believe you know how to add a little CSS styles. So, what we want to do is we want to add a button and say when you click on that button, let the color of this tag change. That's what we want to do. So when you click on the button, let the color of this tag change. Now currently we have it set to red, but I'll change that and also remove the font size. So if I refresh it, they're back to normal. All right, thank you. So what I can do is say come to my HTML, remove this one. So under here or beneath this one, I'll add a button and I can say call it maybe click, or click could be anyone, and save it. So I have a tag here, my H1 tag, and I have a button here, H1 button. Now you can add CSS and style it however you want. But what I want to do is when this button is clicked, let it change the color of this tag. Okay. How to comment out a line is if I keep my cursor on that line, anywhere on that line, or highlight it however you want. Then if you're using Windows, it should be Control//, and if it's Mac, it can be Command//. So Control/ or Command/ should do that for you. So back to what we're talking about. Now, I want to give this an ID, and I'll call it BTN, short for button. So I will select this button tag somewhere here. So I can say const button is equal to document dot get element by ID, and the ID name is BTN, and save. So what I want to do is I want to add an event on the button, and when the button is clicked, it should fire up a function that will change the color of this. So we're just adding logics together to perform a certain task. So on this button, we are going to add an event to it. So I can say button dot add event listener like this. So in this event listener, I can pick any type of event. There are so many types of events, but the common one is a click event. So a click event is whenever it is clicked on. So by doing this, I've added an event on the button, and the type of event that I added is a click event. So whenever you click on this, it will fire up the function. Okay, now I would say you don't necessarily need to be good with CSS to be good with backend. You don't need to be good with CSS to be good with backend. But for this program, now it is required that the little CSS that we will do, we're not going to do so much CSS. The little CSS that we will do, it is important that you know it and understand it. So I'm not going deeper into CSS or into HTML. Now, the little CSS and the little HTML will do, it is important that you understand it. The bulk of what you should learn as a back-end developer is JavaScript. That is the most important part, JavaScript. You can't see what I'm typing. Sorry, I think this is what I typed. So let me know if you can still see it. So I selected the button here and I'm adding an event to the button here. So when you click on this event, it's supposed to fire up a function. Now, you can add an arrow function if you want, which is this. Or you can add a function here, which is the old function, the normal JavaScript function, like this. Or you can declare the function above it, which is const run something. Is equal to an arrow function, and then you put the name here. So anyway, it will work. The most important thing is that whenever this is clicked, a function should run. Okay. So that's the most important thing. Now you can add the function directly here, or you declare the function outside and then you call it. But let's add the function directly here. So what the event will do is that it will take this topic and change the color to red. Style color, set it to be red and save it. So if I refresh this, it should add the color to red. So by clicking on it, the color is now red. That is what this function will do. So you can say clicking on it should change the color to yellow and save that. So if I refresh it and click on it, the color is now yellow. So this is you adding an event using one tag to control another tag. So you are using the button to control what the style of the H1 will be. Now, you can add multiple styles here if you want. You can also say, let this font size be increased. Style.font size, set it to something like 50 pixels. Change the color from yellow to red and save it. So if I refresh this and click on it, the color becomes red and the font size increases to 50. So if you have any question on what we've done so far, what we have done is to be able to change the tag name, add a CSS to it, and also add an event to it. So if you have any question, drop your question on the question and answer topic. If you also have no questions, drop a thumbs up so I know to continue. Thank you. So there are other events. For example, you can say mouse over, but we're not going to look at that. That is like it's beyond the scope of today's class. Mouse over. Exactly. You can do that. You can hide the text by clicking the button, and you can also use mouse over to control it. So mouse over simply means that when I hover over this without clicking, let the event be fired. So by hovering over this, the event will be fired. Now you can also use mouse out. Mouse out means that I will hover over it. While I'm still on it, nothing would happen. But the moment I leave, then the function will be fired. Like that. Okay, now if you type it, you need to use Control S to save it, and that's how you save it. Now, in order for you to see it on your browser, the first thing you need to do is create your HTML, link the JavaScript in your HTML, and open this HTML with your browser. That is how you can actually type it, save it, and then see the changes. So there are other DOM manipulations you could do. So many of them. There are so many DOM manipulations you could do, but there could be form validation. The user will not be able to submit the form until you validate the form. There is also dark mode and light mode. There is modal. There are so many things you can do on the front end, but our major concern is on the back end and what will lead us to the back end. So what I'll do here is I'll stop this one here. For this event, I'll stop this event here. Now, there are so many other events you can actually learn. There are other DOM manipulations too you can learn. But I will stop that one there because it actually goes more or tilts towards the front end. And let's talk about requests. From what we had here on Jamboard, here, sorry, let me go to that place. Here, from what we had here, the front end will be making requests to the back end. So I want to believe that with what we have done so far, you have an idea of what a front end is. So now we want to talk about how the front end will be making requests to our back end server. Gradually, we are moving to the back end. So we want to talk about these requests that are going and coming back, going and coming back. That is what we want to talk about. In JavaScript, we call them asynchronous operations, or you call them async operations, like that, by making requests. So there are different types of requests. The first one is a GET request. The second one is a POST request. The third one, a PUT request. The fourth one, a patch request. And the fifth one, a delete request. Okay. So as a backend developer, the front end will be making these types of requests to you. Now, it is your job to be able to handle these requests. Also, as a backend developer, you can also make this type of request from your own backend to another backend. So you can communicate from your own server to another person's server using the same request. So, but the most important thing is to be able to handle this request coming from the front end. So in order to understand what the request is, you should also know how to make this kind of request. So the first one is a GET request. Now, if you come to, I was on Conga. Let's go with Conga. If you come to conga.com, The first time you click on conga.com, you notice that these things are not here. It will take a while for them to come. So you see that it's loading, and then after a while, they appear. So that type of request, that is actually a request. But that type of request, yes, there are other types of requests aside from this one, but these are like the most important ones or the most ones you will use. There are other type of requests, but these are like the most important ones or the ones you use most often. So like I said, the first time you open this site, you are performing a GET request to get all of these information from the back end. So when it arrives, it will display here. Now, the next type of request is you might want to see the details about only this one. So you click on this one, you've made another request, but that request is just for this particular item. So if you click on it, you see it's taking a while to come back, and then it's back, and now you have information about this particular item. So any request that you make to the backend, any request you make to the backend to get an information, maybe to get multiple informations or to get a single information, that is called a GET request. You are making a request to the backend to give you data or give you information from the database. That's called a GET request. Now, the second type of request is a POST request. Now, these POST requests are more of the front end sending you data to either save the data, but the most important one is that it is sending you data. So any request that involves sending data to the backend is called a POST request. But most times, the request is to accept the data and save it on the what is going share screen. Okay. I don't even know what is wrong, but I'm sorry about that. Let's continue. Okay. Let me know if you can hear me and if you can also see my screen. Yeah, network is always like that. So I have a suggestion. Would you prefer that I record this class and then during our live sessions we play the video? Or would you prefer these live classes? Would you prefer, now in the question and answer, you can answer me, would you prefer I record these classes and then I'll play the video here, or I'll come live and teach it live? Which one would you prefer? Now, while we are having live classes, okay, now the issue is that for the live classes, we might have little breaks here and there, breaks, especially these network issues, but it shouldn't deter you. As a backend developers, you're going to experience a lot of challenges. No, we'll not be pausing the videos. It will be like 30 minutes video. Okay. I will try and record the next class. Or maybe not tomorrow, but for next week class, I'll record it and then let's see how that goes. So, but like I'll say, as a backend developer, you have as a backend developer, you encounter a lot of challenges, and bad network is actually not one of them. The bad network is more like a simple thing. So you have a whole lot of tasks ahead of you as a backend developer because most users are wonderful people. You can build a software that has to do with finance, and the moment somebody's money is hanging, you are like, you will not rest, you will not sleep. Okay, I'll try and record the next week class and then we'll see how that goes from there. If I have to record it and then come again and explain it, it's more like me teaching it again. So, but the intention is to record it, then during the live classes, we'll play the recorded video. But we'll see how that works out. We'll see how that works out. So bear with me and my network. But like I said, there's a lot of challenges waiting for a backend developer, and poor internet is just a slap on the wrist. So it's simple. Now we are explaining these types of requests. As a backend developer, now for the front-end developer is just making a request. But you as a backend developer, you are building an API to handle each of these requests. And that is why it's important you understand what these requests are and what the front end will be expecting from you. Okay, it's fine. So I've explained this get request. Any request that is made to get something from the backend, whether from the backend or from the database, is called a get request. That's a get request. Now, the second one is a post request. For example, a student trying to sign up, a blogger trying to make a blog post, a user trying to post a transaction. So all of these things, they are sending you data to accept the data and save the data on the database. That is called a post request. So when they send you new data, whenever they send you new data, maybe the information of a new student, the information of a new product, information of a new car, or any information at all, so long as it is new and you are expected to save it on the database, that is called a post request. But say you have saved a user's information. For example, you save the user's information, their name, their state, their course, their math number, and all of that. But the user wants to make a correction. So, making a correction, these are the two types of requests that is used to make corrections. But there is a difference between the two of them. The first one is if the user wants to change the whole information that has been saved before, then you will make a put request. A put request is a request that is asking you to remove the information that has already been saved and replace it with a new one. You are replacing the whole information about that user, all of their information about that user. That is a put request. Now, a patch request, you are not changing the whole information, you are changing part of it. Yes, you will get the recorded video of this class after the class. I'm currently recording it, so you'll get the recorded video of this class after this class. And I'll also try and do a recap in tomorrow's class too. So, but we are gradually entering into back end. So I would also like that you follow along. which is why I'm suggesting maybe I should do recorded videos. But I understand students most times it's not easy to watch recorded video. It can be boring, but I will try it for next week class. If it works, then we proceed with that. So like I said, a patch request, you are changing or updating a part of the user's information, not all of it, but a part of it. So can we say a patch request is more like an update request? Exactly. A patch request and a put request, both of them are update requests, but there is a difference between the two of them. A put request, the user is asking you to update all their information with a new information. But a patch request, the user is asking you to update just a part of it, maybe their first name only, or maybe their first name and last name only, or maybe their course only, or maybe their age, or maybe their profile picture. So they are not updating all their information, but they are updating a part of it. So that is what we call a patch request. But a delete request, like the name implies, the user is giving you the permission to delete their information from the database. So that is not just their information, it could be a message that is sent that was saved. You can delete the message. It could be an application that was sent. You can delete the application. Exactly. A put request can also be saying you are replacing the whole data. You are replacing the whole information about the user. So you are replacing the whole information about the user. That is what we call a put request. So as a backend developer, you are going to be building APIs that will handle each of these requests as a backend developer. So what I can do is to demo one request for you. Exactly. You can delete an existing password, but when you are changing a password, it's more like making a patch request because you are updating the user's password only. That is an update request. Exactly. Subscribing from a database is more like a delete request. So you are actually ending whatever relationship you have with that database, like that. So what I want to do is to demo for you how a front-end developer will be making a request to your back end when you build your back end. For example, there is a backend called JSON placeholder API here. Now, this is a free backend that most front-end developers use whenever they are building a project. So this here, what you can actually get here is you can get 100 posts by making a request to /post. I will explain what this thing means in our subsequent classes. So the user can actually get 500 comments, 500 albums, 5,000 photos, 200 to-dos, and 10 users. So we have 10 users currently stored on this backend. You have 200 to-dos, you have 5,000 to-dos. So you can use this to test whatever you are doing. So what we can do to make that request, a front-end developer, what they are doing is they are making a fetch request. Now, a fetch request, making it to a particular URL. Now, this is a backend URL, and they are targeting an endpoint called to-dos. So if you look at it here, you will see that there are so many endpoints here. So in the same backend, there is an endpoint for posts. In the same backend, there is an endpoint for comments. in the same backend, there's an add point for albums, the same thing for photos, the same thing for to-dos, and the same thing for users. So currently, this one is making a request to to-dos. And by adding one here, they are making a request to get the first one, the one with ID number 1. So I can demo that for you. To demo that, what we can do is say, we first create a function. We can say const. Our function name is called fetch all to-dos. Now, this is a function name. You can call it whatever you want and set it to be equal to a function, an arrow function like this. So, these requests, there's a reason why we call them asynchronous operations. The reason is this: they will return a promise. So I will try to explain what a promise is and what asynchronous means. When you are trying to perform a task and you are waiting for a response to come back. Now, when you make this request here on Conga, you are going to wait until it finishes loading. So while it is loading, you know that something will definitely come back. So that is what a promise is. So it is either it will come back as successful or it will come back as failed, but definitely something must come back. That is why it is called a promise. So each of these requests returns a promise. And a promise is simply what will come back from the request. So it can come back as successful, which means it has been fulfilled, or it can come back as unsuccessful, which means it failed. And also, while it is hanging, or not really hanging, while it is still loading, the promise here is pending. So a promise can have different states. It can be successful, it can fail, and it can be pending, like this. So these three things define a promise. So the general way, or how to explain it to a beginner, is that when you make a request, you will wait for a promise to come back. A promise is what comes back. Now, the promise depends on the type of promise depends on what comes back. If it comes back as successful, then it means the promise was fulfilled. If it comes back as failed, the promise failed. But if it takes longer to come back, it means that the promise is still pending. So these are like the three states of each promise. So why these things are going on? They are called asynchronous because they take time to happen. You don't just click a button immediately. For example, here, you don't click a button immediately and it shows up with a blink of an eye. No, it will take a while to come back. So that is why it is called asynchronous. It's called asynchronous because it takes a while to run. And since it will take a while to run, you have to indicate in your function that this function may not complete with a blink of an eye. For example, I have this function. I can pass in here console log. I can pass in console log. Now, this function, if I call it here, fetch. No, this is not called fetch. Fetch all to-dos. Fetch all to-dos. So if I call this function here and save, this function has run automatically. It has run automatically without waiting for anything. It has run. So by the time I'm coming here to refresh, or maybe open console and check my console to see that the value is there and refresh, is already waiting for me there. So this type of function is not asynchronous because you're not waiting for it to return anything. But this type of functions that make requests, you wait for the response from the backend. So the backend is either going to tell you that this function is successful, is failed, or is still pending, like that. So because it's different, you have to indicate here that this function is an asynchronous function by adding the keyword async. Async means that this function will take a while to complete. So it will not complete with the blink of an eye. It will take a while to complete because it is making a request to external server. And until that server is done, the response will not come back. So in order for your application not to crash, now because if I remove this async, let's remove it first and then perform the fetch requests. So I will close this and come here. Now it says to perform a fetch request, you get this. I will explain these things, what it means later. I will explain it. I just put this here. Now the second line is to convert the request from JSON to object. I'll put it here. The third line is to actually console log what is returned. I'll copy it and put it here. And then save this function. So if I come back here and inspect, and where am I going to? I'm going to console. So if I refresh, you see that it took a while for it to come back. So if I clear it again and refresh, for this one, it ran faster. Now I am getting data from a database. And here I am fetching to-dos. Let's fetch users. So I'll come here. I want to get users. So what I'll do is change this to-dos to users and save it instead. So if I come back here and refresh, I get users instead. So for this user, I'm seeing their username, their phone number, their name, and all of that. So what if now this number 1 here means I am fetching the user with the ID 1. So that is why it is returning the user with the ID 1. If I change it to 2 and save it, by the time I refresh, you see that I'm returning the user with the ID 2. Now if I go ahead and change it to 5, and save it and refresh, I'm returning the user with the ID 5. Now this is running faster, and because it's only one user that is fetching, that is why it is running faster. Let's say we are fetching all the users. We are not adding any ID. We want to fetch all the users. So if I refresh, I'm still getting all the users. I have a question. Okay. I'm still getting all the users this time, 10 users. And it looks like my internet is very fast. So that is why this thing is running faster. Let's go ahead and fetch the one with 500 and its comments. 500 comments. So I'll change these users to comments and save it. If I come here, clear this and refresh, my internet is faster. This internet is stupid. I want to demo async and synchronous. Yes, there is a difference, and that is what I'm trying to demo. So, but my internet, sorry, can't see your screen. Am I still sharing my screen? I'm still sharing my screen. You should be able to see my screen. Try exiting the call and joining again. Network is working now, exactly. See, and it's very fast. Otherwise, I'm supposed to have an error because it is going to fetch 500 items from the database. Now, since it's fetching 500 items from a database, and this function is not labeled as async, I should have an error. It should crash, but it's running faster. Thank God it's running faster. I think my network is very good. But what I'm trying to demo is that you can actually make a request. The URL is this. This is the URL to the backend, but here is the resource, which is the endpoint, the resources you are trying to get. So by adding comments, you're getting comments. By adding users, you're getting users, and so on and so forth. Let's try photos then. Photos is 5,000. Okay, so I will try getting photos then and save. So by the time I refresh, it's actually running fast. Can you see? It's very fast. I don't know why, but it's fast. But what I want to explain to you is this. You need to add async because most of your users will not have fast internet like that. And here, because it's async, you need to tell it await. So, what is async and what is await? Async means that this function will take a while to run. It will not complete immediately. So, because it will not complete immediately, and here we are console logging this, and we are using the response that is returned here. If we go ahead to use this when the data is not back, our function or our software will crash. Because here in these two lines, we are trying to use the response that will be returned. So if the response has not come back and we are already using it here, the website or the software will crash. But because we know that it will take a while to finish, we are adding the keyword await. So this means that when this function starts running line by line, if it gets to this line, it will wait for this response to come back before it proceeds to the next line to use the response. So this thing here will cause a lot of software to crash if you do not indicate that this function you are trying to use as a request function should actually wait like that. So this is how we make a request. Now, let me explain what the request is and how to make a request. The first thing you need to do is declare a function. When you declare a function, now this function, like I said, a function is like a robot that will do anything for you. So here you are writing a function that will go and get data from a database, from a backend actually. So this function will get data from a backend. So the first thing you need to do is indicate here that I want to make a fetch request. So you type fetch like this. Now, by adding fetch without indicating what the method is, automatically the method is a get request. So let me explain what I mean. I think it is actually here. See guide. Let me open this in a new link. Yes, so this is what I'm trying to explain. If you make this request, in this request, there is nowhere here where we are telling the type of request we are making. So because you are not telling the type of request you are making here, automatically it is a get request and you will get data. But here, we are indicating the type of request here. And the type of request here is a post request. And you are being sent a title, the body, and the user ID as a data, all of it inside the body here. So you have a post request, they are sending you data to save it. Now the next type of request is this one, a put request. So they are telling you replace all of that information that you have saved before. Replace all of them with this one, like that. And I think I should also share this these two URLs with you on the group. So let me drop it here. And where should I drop that? Question and answer here. So this is the first URL and this is the second URL. Good. So here we are indicating the type of request. Now here is a patch request. And if you notice, they are not sending all the data again. They're sending just the title. Because a patch request, you are updating a part of it, not all of it. So the next one is a delete request. So you just pass it delete and pass in the ID of the one you want to delete, and that will be all. So that's the most important type of request to make. So here we are making a request here, but we are not adding or indicating the type of request. So automatically it's a get request like that. So that's what I was trying to explain here. So here you make a get request. So when you make a get request, you need to add the URL of the backend. So as a backend developer, when you build all your backend, you will deploy it. When you deploy the URL, the backend, you get a URL. You send the user or the front end the URL and all the endpoints that you have. So on this one, this is the URL from here.com to this HTTP. This is the URL. So every backend will have a URL. So this is the URL. But to get a request, you need to indicate the endpoint or the resource that you want, or the endpoint that you are making the request to. So this is to-dos, and we're trying to get users, so we can take /users. So here I can add /users, or maybe post, anyone. Let me go with posts and save it. So if I come back, let's be sure, I'll clear this, nothing is showing. So this request is running. But like I said, the ID professional way is to indicate that this function will take a while to finish, and you need to say, I wait for it. So wait for it to come back before you run the next line. Okay. So when you add that, the next thing you want to do is to actually convert. Now, I told you before that the format, I don't know if I have said it before, the format with which we send and receive data is called JSON. So assume you have an object here that looks like this, and you call this first name. First name is equal to David, comma, last name is equal to Samson. I just hope that our new timers are not lost. So I can declare this to be, say, response is equal to an object like this. So this is an object, but it can also become JSON. But the difference with it is, for JSON, everything will be in quotes like this. So this is the difference between object and JSON. This is the difference between object and JSON. And like I said, the format with which we send and receive data. So if the front end is sending you data, it will send it in form of JSON. If the back end is sending data to the front end, it will send it in form of JSON. And this is what we call JSON. JSON looks like an object, but the difference is, in JSON, everything comes in quotes. So what I can do is say, from here, what we are trying to do here is add on .then. Now, I want to explain what that .then means. .then. So, because this is going to take a while to run, and after it finished running, you are then saying .then. So, when you are done running, then you do this one. When you are done doing this one, then you do this one. So, you will only do this one when you are doing this. Okay, now I know why it is not failing, because we are using .then for error handling. Okay. I understand right now. So this is .then, and what we can do is say we want to take the response. You can call it anything. You can call it anything. Take the response and convert the response from JSON to object like this. So you can call it result, you can call it anything you want, however you want it. Result, or you can even call it EE or ER, anything you want to call it. So just know that whatever you call the response here, that's what you are converting from JSON to object. So when you convert it, you then say .then, whatever you want to call the object now, you write it there. I say console log the object, which is a PP. So I'm just trying to show you that these names here, response and response, they are not coming from JavaScript. You can call it anything. Then this JSON here is not because it's JSON. You can call it anything like this. So this is how you make a GET request and you save it. So if I come back here and refresh, I have invalid left hand, which is okay. I'm trying to you see what at line 57. Where's my line 57? Here. Okay, sorry, I've forgotten to comment these things out. Yeah, so sorry. I refresh. So I'm not console logging again because I've not called this function. So I need to call the function for the function to run. Save that and refresh. So we have it fetching 100 posts like this. So as a backend developer, like I said, you need to understand what the user is expecting when they make this kind of requests. So it means in your backend, there's a place where you will build an API that handles for posts, and you should be able to send the user all the posts. And also, if the user enters an ID, you should also send the user the post that has ID number 1, like this. So understanding this is the beginning of a back-end development. So I don't know if you have any questions so far on what we have done. If you have any question on what we have done, drop it on the question and answer topic. If you have any question, drop it on the question and answer topic. Any question? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, this is not an API per se, but it is API that is accepting this request and returning the post to us back. So it is not an API. Now on the back end is where you have the API. So, but this is a request made on the front end to actually get the post. So it is the API that will accept the request and then send us back a post. From the diagram here, if this front end makes a request to get the post, The API will accept the request, go into the database, it will not find the post, then it will go to the database, then it will find where the post is saved, pick it up, and then send it back to the front end. So this request now is being made on the front end, but on the back end, the API is the one handling the request, as in accepting the request and sending you back a post. So when we move into backend proper, you will learn how to build the API that will be sending back these posts. Okay, now it is normal not to understand this part. So what I will do is I will do it in another way to see whether you understand it. I will not do it like this. I will do it in another way to see whether you understand it. Yes, you must convert it. Now, if you choose not to convert it to object, and then you just go ahead to console log it, the JSON, EE. Now, nothing will happen, just that you can't use the data. I was going to show you how to use the data that you fetch. So if you look at it here, nothing is happening. You are still getting the data back. It's just that you can't display it on the front end without converting it to objects. So at this point, this part allows you to convert it. No, this part actually allows you to convert it. This is the part that allows you to convert it. But then here you can then use it. So, but if you decide to console log it like that, you get the response. Where is the response? This is header, and I'm trying to get the response now. You see, I'm actually not seeing the response. Let me see. Is there anything in the body? Nothing. So we can't actually access the response if we don't convert it back to something that we can read on the front end. But I'll do it in another way. Throw more light on the console. Okay. Okay. Now, the .then is not compulsory, so I will do it in another way for the sake of those who don't understand. So what I'll do is I'll comment this out. Now, the software we're using to demo, this is called VS Code. This thing where we are writing our code is called VS Code. VS as in Visual Studio Code, like this. So this is the software we're using to write our code. And we're using, and the browser I am using is Edge. So you can use any browser you want, Chrome, Brave, anyone you want. So another way I want to do this is this. I'll write a function here, and I'll call it run something. If I don't have that function already, run something is a function like this. So I have a function. Now, I know that this function is supposed to fetch me data. So what I will say is fetch me data. And the data I want to fetch is from a particular URL. So the URL is this URL. So I'm fetching it from this URL. But the resource that I want, I can pick any of the resources. So I will go with post. You can go with any resources you want. Now, this is going to return a response. Now, that response that will be returned, I want to store it inside a variable called response, or call it anything you want. So it is going to be returning a response. This is going to return a response, and I'm storing it inside here. When it returns it, I store it inside there. Then I can console log it to see what is inside the response. Now, I hope this one makes it simpler for you to understand. So you are making a request here, and you are saving the response inside this variable and you are console logging the variable. So if I refresh this, I have not called the function. I need to call the function, run something, and save. So now you see that my promise was pending, and then I have error. Now the reason why I have this error is because at this point here, now the error is on line 73, which is this. This response has not been returned, and I'm already console logging it. So I need to indicate that this is an async function, and then here I need to tell it to await, and then save it. So if I refresh again, now I am getting the response, but I have not been able to convert it. So, but I think I wanted to use this to explain it so it'll be easier for you to understand. And I don't want to do too much, so that you not get confused. But I just hope that this explains what I'm trying to demo here. There's a better way of doing it, but I think it's, for now, it is above what I'm trying to explain. If you understand this simpler one, with the then we can talk about using try catch and so on and so forth. So here. Okay, thank you so much. It's supposed to be post. Sorry, it's supposed to be post. I wasn't seeing that. Yeah, the URL was actually wrong. The URL is wrong. So I will try that again and save. Okay, now I'm getting the response here. So what is actually being returned is the whole response. And I'm supposed to have the data object here, but I don't have that here. So let me see if I can pick out the data object from here. Refresh, and I'm not getting data. So you see that because I've not been able to convert it from what was returned to what I need to use, I can't actually see the information that is being returned. So I can't use it, which is why it's important to convert it. And there's a better way to do it, but I'm trying to use this to just explain the different steps by step. So here we are actually converting what was returned. So what I can do is say here now I want to create a variable and I'll call it results. And I'll say the result should be response.json, which is like converting it from what was returned to what we can use. CLD and what's the name now? Results. Save it. Let's see if we are getting it back. So we get the promise pending, and then the promise fulfilled, and then we have all of this. And that is because I'm not getting, I'm supposed to get a wait. So let me see if I have to wait for this also. I refresh this. Yes, I have to wait. Now you see the difference here now. Each of these things take time to run. So, but if you add a wait keyword, you are telling it to wait for that step to be complete. So we are trying to convert we're trying to convert 100 objects from JSON back into objects. So if we remove the await here and refresh, you see that we don't know when it is done. But if you open it, you see that after it was pending, it got fulfilled. And then we have this. So it means that we did not decide to wait before console logging. we just console log without waiting. If you remove this here and save, we have error. Response.json is not a function. You see that it has skipped this one and it is now running this one because we are not adding the await keyword. Yes, the class is recorded. So if you want to run this, the moment you put this as async in JavaScript, there's something we call threads. I don't know if it's beyond the level of this class, but there's something we call threads. Threads means a particular function is running on the background. So because it's running on the background, it will not cause the app to crash. Every other thing will continue working as normal. Now, whenever that function is done, it will return the data or the promise that comes with it. So that is what this async is doing here. The moment you label this function as async, it means that the whole of this function is supposed to run on the background. Now, but while it is running on the background, some of them will take time to complete. So like this particular line 73 will take time to complete. So you need to tell the function to wait for this one to come back. But these ones here, if you don't add this await, it means that while this one is taking time to run, this one will run automatically. And that will give us an error because by the time we get to line 74, we don't know what response is, which is why when I try to run this function, it will tell me on caught from error in the promise. Response.json is not a function. So it is trying to understand what response is. But it will not know what response is because this one has not returned the promise. So what you can say is, don't run this one yet. Wait for this one to come back. So until when this one is back, before you will run this part. So if I save it and refresh again, you see now it is actually returning a response, but we did not wait for it to convert all of the items returned to objects before we are console logging. So we can say wait for it again to convert all of it first, then before you console log. So if I save it again and refresh, you see now I am getting all of my data. So these are the two ways for now that you can do this. But going forward, there are other ways to do it, like an advanced way of doing it. But this is like the basic and simple way of doing it. But for the person who said he doesn't understand, I don't know if this one makes it clearer for you to understand how to make a GET request to a server and get it back. So, but if you have any question, yes, object is readable. It is object that we can use in the software, but we only use JSON when we want to send data from one end to another, maybe from the front end to the back end, or from the back end to the front end. So the format with which we send data is JSON. But if you want to use that data, you have to convert it from JSON to object before you can use it in your software. Like that. Yeah, you're welcome. So what I want to demo next, I don't know if I still have time. Now I want to, I'm getting the response, which is this. I want to display it on the front end, which is here. So let's do that. How I do that is for the sake of my let's go the new class, you can actually follow us up. So what I will do is I will create a div here and call it container. I have a div here and it's called container. So what I want to do is when I get the first post, which is the post with the ID number 1, I want to create HTML for it, arrange it, and put it inside this div so that it can be displayed on the website here. Okay, I don't know what you mean by application, but I will share this code that I'm writing on GitHub, and you can get the code on GitHub. So back to what I was explaining. First, I will select the container. I will say const the div is equal to document dot get element by ID. Did I give it ID or class? I gave it class. Okay. Should I use class? Should I use ID? Let me use ID since I've already written ID. Get element by ID. So I'll just pass in the ID here, which is this. So do you have a question? So the shortcut is this. What I did was when you type dot, it knows that the next thing you're typing is a class name. So if you hit enter, it will create a div with the class of that name. But when you type hash, it knows that what you are typing is an ID name. So if you hit enter, it will create a div with that ID name like that. So that's the shortcut I used. So here, or are you asking for the one I used to? Okay, that's it. So here I've selected the div. I am getting the result. So I want to consolidate this result to see that I'm actually getting one post with the ID. Yeah, I'm getting, this is user. Okay, it's actually a post made by a particular user. So this is the post, the body of the post, the ID, and the title. So what I want to do is this. I'll pick that div and say dot inner HTML. So I want to add HTML inside it. So I'll put backticks and open it. So inside this backticks, I will add a div and close it up. So here is the div and the closing div is here, and I'll open it up. So inside the div, I want to add the title with H1. So I will put a H1 tag here. Close it, pass in H1, close it. So what I then want to do is say here, I will do something like dollar, which we talked about before, dollar quote. So here I will add results dot title, and save. Let me see if I'm getting the result, the title. So if I close this and refresh, so the title is coming out here. So the next thing I want to do is maybe add the body. I'll add the body in a P tag. So I'll put P. So here I will add dollar bracket curly braces. So I'll say result dot body here and save it. Now I can go ahead and change this and then maybe add something like H6 here for the ID, the user ID like this. I say H6, close this, H6, and then I can say user ID like this, and then dollar curly braces result dot user ID like this, and save it. So what I am doing here, let me just explain. I'm fetching the first post or the post with the ID number 1. So when I fetch it, I convert the response to object that we can use. At this point, I'm logging it here. So, but here I am getting a div that I added in HTML, this div. So I am getting this div, I'm getting it here, select the div and store it inside the variable called div. So inside that div, I am adding inner HTML to it. So this is backticks. That all of this is surrounded with backticks. So inside this div, I am adding another div. That's what I'm doing. So inside this div, I'm adding another div. So inside this div, I have h1, paragraph, and the h6. And the information I'm adding inside is what is being returned, or what the object we are converting here, result. We're adding the title here, we're adding the body here, we're adding the user ID here. So if I refresh this, I have the title, the user ID, and all of this. And you can style this if you want. So what I mean is this. I have a question. The function of console log is to be able to see what we are writing, or how our JavaScript is performing, or what is going on with our JavaScript, or debug the JavaScript. So the console log is just the section or the part of the browser that is used to see or preview JavaScript codes, or what is going on with JavaScript. So that's what console log is. Okay, the $sign. Now, the $sign, I don't know if we talked about, I did talk about string concatenations. So we can join strings together by using, for example, let me, what I'll do is this. I will comment this one out and then keep only that. So what I mean is this. I can have a variable here, const A is equal to 1, or maybe say const A is equal to HH. I'll say const B is equal to GG, like this. Now I can put them together and say const message is equal to A plus B. So I'm trying to join these two variables together here. I'm not adding actually, because these are not numbers. I'm joining them together. So I can then console log message like this. So I created a variable A here. I created another variable B here. I'm joining the two of them together here and storing inside the variable message. And then I am console logging the message here. So if I go to my console here, you will see that I have HH and GG joined together. But I can come here and say, I want to put space in between the two of them here. So I have AA here, I have BB here, but in the middle, I am adding space. So if I save it and clear this, refresh, now you see I have HH and GG. This is one way of adding them. Now another way of joining them will be this. Use backticks and then say $, the variable A, space, $ again, and then the variable B. So here you are doing what we call the string literals or string concatenations. We are joining two strings together. This is how to join strings together using EX5. Now, for those who are joining us for the first time, I know you don't know what EX5 means and what ES6 means. Now, ES5 is like the older version of JavaScript. ES6 is like the newer version of JavaScript. So this is how to do it the old way, and this is how to join variables the new way. So if you want to use a variable inside a string, which is what we did here, we're using a variable here, and that is why we're adding $ and quote and then a curly braces. So if I save this, instead of console logging MSSG now is equal to this, so I can add here MSSG. This is const, no, yeah, const. So I'll save this. You know what? I need to console log the two of them so that you see the two of them. One is MSG, one is MSSG. Yeah. So if I save this and refresh, now you can see that line 76, which is this first line, is for this one. This second one is for here 77, which is this. So these two things are the same thing, but we're doing it different ways. So here, because I'm using backticks here, that is why I have to use dollar and curly braces. But if I'm not using backticks, then I can join the strings using the plus sign. But we can't do this. We can't add inner HTML without backticks. So because I'm trying to add inner HTML with backticks, to use a variable, you use dollar and curly braces. So that's why I'm using dollar and curly braces to be able to use this variable that is coming from the back end. So I don't know if that has actually answered the question. So if I refresh this, I have this here now. And I said you can actually modify this more. Just add the class name here. For those who actually understand, add the class name here. Call it something like card. And save it. You can copy card. Come down to HTML. In the head, you call style. And then put card. Actually dot card. So we want to add what am I adding? Border. First thing is border. I'll say 1 pixel solid green. And if I save it and refresh, I have a border around it. I think 1 pixel is too small, so I can add 2 pixels. Refresh, and I can add padding too. Padding left, padding right, padding top and bottom, and all of that. So I can do padding top and bottom 10 pixels, left and right 15 pixels. I save that. So if I refresh, see the padding is gone, and so on and so forth. You can change the style of this one, the color of this, and all of that as you wish. But the most important thing is to get the data from the back end. So when you get the data from the back end, you convert it from JSON back to object. Then you can use the object as we are using it here by adding an inner HTML to a div. So do you have any question on what we have done so far here? Now, if you don't understand this thing can also be done with the first one, which is remove this here. It can also be done with this here. So after you get it, the object here is called PP. So instead of using results, which is this, you can then replace it by using PP and it will work. So let me just copy that. I'll first of all do this above here. Select the div here and then get the inner container here and pass it in here. You know what? I can just uncomment this out. It says declaration statement expected. Okay, I didn't cover this one out. So I can uncomment this out. So I have that div here and I'm trying to add this into it. So instead of what's it called? I can then say you know what, at this part now, this is not, no, you can't do this. You need to first of all bring out this variable. So this one is a long process. You need to first bring out this variable from here because you can't use it here. If I add the PP directly, it can fail. PP, if I add it directly, it can fail because you need to first bring it out. So if I refresh, it's failing, so it's not working. And I'm also not calling the function. Am I calling it? Where am I calling it? I'm supposed to call it here. Let me see. So inspect to see what my error is. Yeah, got error. PP is not defined. Exactly. You need to first bring out this here, by saying, for example, we can say here, let rs, which is response, is an undefined variable. So here now we can then say rs is equal to pp. So we have brought it out. So instead of using pp, you can use rs, which is a short word. So if I clear this and refresh, and it says cannot read property type of undefined. Exactly, because initially here is undefined. So can I do optional chaining? Sorry, most of these things I'm doing, they're like above today's class, but I want to see if you can do both of them at the same time. Yeah, now it's working, but initially it's undefined. So you see, what it means is that here we're not doing await. So what we can do is, no point doing this one. Let's skip this one. Control Z, 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 Z. Skip this one. Yeah. So skip this one. You can go with this. This is a better way of doing it. Yeah, like this. So do you have any question so far on what we have done? Any question? Yeah, I understand. Sorry, your battery is down. I think mine is also down. Okay, almost. Sorry. So any question so far? Exactly. Try catch is not a synchronous per se, but error handling. We're going to use try catch. Now, try catch is error handling. For example, let's say I want to do this again. I will add, or maybe here. So let me just do it here. I will add try catch. Now, like I said, this try catch is above us. So here we can then console log the error, whatever the error is. So inside this place, we can cut this out and put it inside a try block like this. So gradually we are entering into it. So what is try catch? Try catch is more like your phone is down. I'll drop a link for you on the Telegram group. So you click on the link and you will have access to the code on GitHub like that. And I hope you understand what GitHub is. But if you don't, drop a message, somebody will answer you. So I will drop a link, you click the link, you get access to the code. So a try catch is simply try to do every line here. So try to do this first line, try to do this second line, try to do all of this line. But at any point where you cannot do that line, catch what the error is, catch what is stopping you from doing it, and console log what the error is. So that's what try catch is. Try catch is more like error handling. So error handling is a try, but we're going to talk about try catch more later. So for now, it's actually more than what we're doing. So I'll remove try catch. But try catch simply means try to do all of these lines. Now, at any point where you can't do it, catch what is stopping you, catch the error, and console log the error. Can any URL be used as this? Now, the URL has to be the back-end URL. So the back-end developer will be the one to give you a URL to their back end. It cannot be any random URL, but it can be any back-end URL, any back-end URL at all. I can give you a URL to a back-end that I have or any back-end at all, but you don't share people's back-end. Because the moment you share a backend, the whole of that application can be hacked. So as a backend developer, if a software is going to be hacked, it depends largely on you. So if you share information with outsiders, it means that backend can be hacked. Imagine if Access Bank is hacked. It means everybody's money there is gone. Or maybe OPay is hacked. It means everybody's money is gone. So as a backend developer, a lot depends on you. you are going to share this URL to the front-end developer. In fact, you're not even giving it to the front-end developer. You are giving it to the project manager, so that if anything goes wrong, the project manager will be held responsible, not you. So, but you can use any URL, any backend URL at all. Any other question before we call it a day? Okay. Now, how to know a backend URL? There are so many ways to know. The first way is, if you look at where this .com ends, this is how front end ends. The moment you see .com, you're not going to be seeing all of this. So if you see anything that continues there, sometimes it's a backend, but majority of the times, how you know a backend URL is somewhere here, they will put /API/. So once you see this /API here, automatically it's a backend URL. That's how you know a backend URL. But for this one, they are not adding the API. So it's just like a test URL. So, but when you are building, how to know a backend URL is, it will have this keyword API. So you know that that is what a backend URL. Yes, you are getting the video for this recording after the class. You will get that. So ask your question before we end the class. And if there's no more questions, drop a thumbs up in the question and answer topic so we know to end the class and call it a day. But for the video recording after the class, I've dropped the video. Sorry. So drop a thumbs up, the question and answer that I know to end the class. So thank you for today's class. I'll see you again tomorrow, and try to go through this. Let me share this on GitHub first. And I'll call this, let me call it done. Save it. Okay. So upload an existing file. And here I have the files here and here. So drop them here, commit. Nice. So I'm dropping the link to the code base. Yeah. So that's all. See you guys again tomorrow by 5 p.m. Thank you for coming to today's class. See you again tomorrow. All right. Bye.